It's crossover Thursday with Locked On UCF's own Mike G as we discuss the biggest question in this game. Who's the better team at running the football?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. You can stay in touch by following me on Twitter, RichieBrats36, and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode, of course, it's sponsored by friends over at FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, it is crossover Thursday. It is the best episode of the week, in my humble opinion. And we are sitting down with Locked On UCF's own Mike G. And this is a brand new podcast, by the way. Locked On UCF has been around for less than a month. So check out his work. Mike is one of the smartest individuals I've ever talked to. Super down to earth. A lot of fun conversations with him. So definitely check out his work and get accustomed to what we're going to experience against UCF this upcoming weekend. Now, crossover Thursday, as always, we're here to discuss what's going on with ASU, what's going on with UCF. We got some predictions at the end of the show, as always, because we have to. The biggest question that we're going to tackle going into this game, who's going to run the ball better? And you would think it's Arizona State. They have Cam Skattebo. What? Oh, hold on. Skattebo is not 100%. We do not know if Skattebo is going to lace up for this game with an undisclosed injury that he suffered against Oklahoma State. That'd be huge. That would be a pretty drastic hit to the Sun Devils backfield. Skattebo almost 6 yards carry, over 1,000 yards, 13 total touchdowns, because guess what? He's a threat through the air too. 400 yards, 15 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns through the air. He's Mr. Do-It-All. What do we call him here on the Locked On Sun Devils podcast? We call him the people's running back because he can run it, he can throw it, he can pass it, he can punt it, and he's your mom's favorite player. But he may not lace up for this game. Now, keep in mind, Chris Cartman from Sun Devil Source of 24/7 did mention that he would not be surprised if Skattebo willed his way onto the field, and he is questionable as well. Kenny Dillingham phrased it as doubtful to questionable. So it's not like he's completely out of this game. I will tell you, for the sake of this podcast that's coming up that you're going to tune into in just a moment, I did talk as if he's not going to be there because I don't want to assume something. Because if Skattebo doesn't play, this is a very different football game. I don't need to tell you guys that. You know that based off of what we have seen through the first 7-8 games of the year. Skattebo plays, it's a different game. If he doesn't, it's going to be the Kyson Brown show, which, first of all, I'm really excited about because I am of the belief that I love Jason Brown. I love Raleek Brown. I love the core that's on this team. I'm sure they're going to address some guys in the transfer portal. Kyson's the future of this backfield. Kyson is the future of this backfield, and this is a great opportunity to advertise yourself to the future of Sun Devils football for the fans, the students, the alumni, to your team, to your coaching staff of like, yeah, no, when Skattebo is gone because he's out of eligibility, I'm him. You trust me. You put that workload on my back. We're going to kill it. We're going to see. This is a big opportunity for him. Now, on the other side, UCF has the second leading rusher in the Big 12. He might be the first. I think he's the first now that I think about it. First leading rusher in the Big 12 with RJ Harvey. And head coach Gus Malzahn for the UCF Knights loves running the football. He has always loved to run the football. You can take that back to his days at Auburn. This is no different. RJ Harvey, over 1,200 yards this year, 16 rushing touchdowns, 2 touchdowns through the air. He's averaging almost 17 yards a catch. He's also averaging 7 yards per carry. He's explosive. We have seen this year there are two extremes for Sun Devils run game defense. They can shut a guy out, like we saw with Ollie Gordon, or they can get trounced for 100 yards, like we saw with Devin Neal and Taj Brooks. Now, those weren't terrible games against Kansas and against Texas Tech, but they laid on their running back. They said, hey, we're going to need you to get this offense going. And they said, sure, let's do it. Give me 20 carries, give me 25 carries. Let's do it. And they did. This could be the same situation we see coming up here with UCF, especially because they are rolling with a young quarterback. Is it Dylan Risk? Yeah, Dylan Risk, redshirt freshman. People are already calling him like Baby Manziel. So I'm really excited to see him and see for myself how this guy looks. But apparently he's a really good runner on the year through however many games, 75% completion, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. Let's see how he plays against a Brian Ward defense that is absolutely going to be scheming up for him. But that's going to be the biggest deciding factor in this game is who runs the football better between ASU and between UCF. Because I think, and Mike G thinks as well, that's going to be the difference in this game. But that's enough talking from me. Let's go ahead and head over into the crossover episode that you guys have been patiently waiting for. I teed it up. I'm going to hand it over to Mike G, and I will see you over there. Until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.
Skattebo may not be available. Can the Sun Devils take down the Knights without their everything, man?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF. It's a crossover episode, and we're your daily podcast, whether you're watching the Sun Devils or the Knights. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you for making Locked On your first listen of every day. Joining me is my favorite Sun Devil, Richie Bradshaw. Richard, it's hot out there in Tempe, but it may be a little less hot without Skattebo. Update us, man. What's going on out in Tempe, man? The reports are he could be hurt. He may go. He may try to go. What's the latest?
So Cameron Skattebo this past weekend against Oklahoma State ran absolutely rampant. If you did not catch the game by chance, he became the first running back in 10 years, over 10 years, to catch and rush for over 100 yards in the game. He had 3 total touchdowns. He was the offense.
Unreal.
Yes. Towards the end of the game, as he was running into the end zone for his 3rd touchdown, he got popped from a Oklahoma State defender who was trying to get him out of bounds, which, that's always a bad business decision when you're trying to tackle the man who, for some reason, just defies logic with the contact balance. It blows my mind. But looks like he had him pretty good, because next we saw Skattebo was on the sidelines, no pads on, and talking with what we now assume was some kind of medical staff trainer. And on Monday, Kenny Dillingham comes out and he says, hey, he's doubtful to questionable. We're not going to rule him out. It's an undisclosed injury. We'll kind of take a look at how the week goes, but he is not going to be practicing. So as of now, ASU is rolling under the assumption that you will not have Skattebo in this game. And I think that's the way that ASU needs to prepare for this game. But I have seen and I've been told that, yeah, this is a guy that does not want to miss this game. So do not be surprised if he wills his way onto the football field, which would be cool. But it's like, hey, man, we're going bowling this year. You can sit out a game. You'll be okay. I promise. Like, we'll find a way to get by. Do not put your body on the line. But he obviously gives you a drastically better opportunity to win the football game when he's on the field.
I'm interested to see what this Arizona State offense looks like without Skattebo. Now, you mentioned he was a beast versus Oklahoma State. 153 yards rushing, 121 yards receiving. He was both the leading rusher and receiver. As a matter of fact, he had 529 yards of total offense, and he was 51% of the yardage production. What does this look like? Who steps up in his place? I have questions.
I do too. Don't you worry. This is a very young offense. You've got redshirt freshman quarterback Sam Leavitt, who has been playing pretty good football this year. He's getting better week to week. You look at him in week 1 against Wyoming, and there was a lot of passes he missed. There was a lot of not inability, but maybe unwillingness to hang around in the pocket. And he looked like a redshirt freshman quarterback. What are the odds of that? Compared to this past weekend against Oklahoma State, and he looks way more confident, and he is getting on the same page as his receivers, and he's able to deliver the ball down the field. So you should be able to maintain some of your offense as long as Leavitt is under center. Like if you're with Jeff Sims or Trenton Bourguet as your starting quarterback because of Leavitt's previous injury where he took a shot to the ribs and somehow only took 2 weeks to be able to get back from it. But if you're without Leavitt, I don't know how much of a chance you have in this game. But go ahead.
No, I was saying, look, he threw for 300 yards. So you mentioned the chance that Skattebo may not go, and it's like, hey, we're going bowling. But there's a lot on the line here for Arizona State. You're 6-2 right now, and your best player, if he doesn't go, you've got to find some answers on offense. Is there a chance that they're maybe not looking at it like, hey, we can get by this one without you, or it's you never know what's going to happen in the Big 12. We saw Iowa State went down this past weekend. BYU still sitting there undefeated, but there's some openings for those 2 lost teams to jump in there and make some noise.
There certainly is, and I would be surprised if that wasn't something that was on Cam's mind as motivation to get onto the field. This is a really good running back room. It's just Skattebo has been so good this year that you're not really distributing carries. But last week you did see Kyson Brown get involved. He is probably the future of this backfield when Skattebo inevitably runs out of eligibility this offseason as a true senior, which, God, how many times do you see that anymore in college football?
Yeah.
Kyson, he's a beast. He's a bigger back, but he is able to make moves in space. He had a 66-yard touchdown reception early in the year, or a 68-yard, which is the longest on the team. He had 2 rushing touchdowns this past weekend. I know that ASU trusts him to be the go-to running back if they need him to be. I also know that Leavitt has a connection with number 1 receiver Jordan Tyson. Yeah, it feels like he gets 10 targets a game. It's not quite that much, but it certainly feels like half of Leavitt's passes are going in the direction of number 0. So you're certainly going to be leaning on Kyson Brown and Jordan Tyson in this game if Skattebo's not good to go. And I do trust them. It's just you talk about how drastically better this offense is when Skattebo is out there. If you don't have him out there, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if they can coast by. I don't know if they're just going to fall flat on their face.
Yeah, certainly missing a guy like that is you're going to have to find answers offensively. It represents a unique opportunity for other players to step up and show that they can fill the shoes, some very large shoes that Skattebo leaves. You're talking about the 3rd leading rusher in the Big 12. Now, look, he is not the only big name back that was expected to take the field on Saturday. UCF has their own nightmare at running back the ASU is going to have to stop, and we're going to talk about him right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends over at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon, Richard, to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. The terms apply and product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.Gold/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. This episode of Locked On UCF crossover is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now, the line on this game, what's the line on this game? Where are we sitting? It moves.
I want to say it was 4.5.
4.5.
I think.
Got quickly here. What are you taking? What are you taking when you place your bet?
Oh man, I am somebody who certainly loves to use my FanDuel app. I'll tell you what, I'm on that bad boy every weekend. It's always
three.
a good time.
It's
Yes.
3.5.
It's 3.5.
No, wait. I'm sorry. It's 3 now.
That's so tough. It really depends on Skattebo. I know that UCF has been very up and down this year, but they still got a really good running game with RJ Harvey. They can move the ball. If they control the clock, they might be able to pull this game out. Right now, off the top of my head, I would probably take UCF to cover. I just don't know if ASU is ready to dominate a spread without Skattebo on the field.
I think this is going to be a fun one to watch with or without Skattebo.
You like Smash Mouth football?
Give me UCF and the points on that one. So whether you agree with me or Richard, go check out our friends at FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first bet. That's FanDuel.com. Richard, RJ Harvey is a man. As a matter of fact, I think he's the second leading rusher in all of college football right now. He's first in the Big 12. This is a much tougher defense he's going to be going up against this week. How are you looking for Arizona State to defend RJ Harvey on Saturday?
I mean, I wouldn't say you have to sell out for RJ Harvey, but he's got to be your top priority. ASU has faced some really good running backs this year. They faced Ollie Gordon last week. They clamped him, which, I mean, that whole offense is just very untrustworthy with Oklahoma State. He's still an elite running back, though, so I take pride in that. But earlier this year, you faced Taj Brooks and you faced Devin Neal from Texas Tech and Kansas, respectively. They both had 100-yard days on you. They were really the only things that were slowing you down in the run game this year, though. Other than that, ASU's been a pretty stout run defense. They've got a really good interior. They've got linebackers who fly to the football. They've got defensive backs who can help set the edge. So I trust them to be able to help contain the run. But we've seen this year that the elite running backs in the Big 12 are able to do some damage if they get enough of a workload. And RJ Harvey is no stranger to getting a workload for the Knights. So I would not be surprised if this is a 100-yard day for him. I could see a scenario where ASU holds UCF as a whole to under 100 yards, but I would lean towards the former of RJ Harvey getting 100 by himself.
Gus Malzahn offense is always predicated around the run, and RJ Harvey is at the center of that right now. But the big news down in Orlando is that KJ Jefferson is out as of a few weeks ago. They tried their hands between EJ Colson and Ja'Curry Brown. Ja'Curry was a threat to run. As a matter of fact, versus Iowa State, he put up 154 yards on 13 carries, but could not be enough of a threat with his arm to keep defenses honest. Gus said, screw it, and he went to his fourth-string quarterback, who is a redshirt freshman, and this kid looks like a mini Johnny Manziel running around there, Richard. So beside trying to stop Harvey, you got the challenge of trying to stop a young quarterback who's confident right now, but there's not a ton of tape on him.
The only saving grace there for ASU, defensive coordinator Brian Ward, is one of the best kept secrets in the entire country. Brian Ward is the king of second half adjustments. And the way that he is able to game plan on a week-to-week basis absolutely blows my mind. I've said this many times on the Locked On Sun Devil show, so I'll go ahead and say it here. ASU needs to do whatever they can to make sure he never, ever leaves Tempe. He's got the roots. He was a high school coach out here and everything. So there's a reason for him to stay. But I truly believe that based off of this year and if he continues to have stronger and stronger years, teams should call about either throwing more money at him to be their defensive coordinator, or depending how big of a program you are, maybe kicking the tires on him as being a head coach. But he's just so smart with the way that he runs his defense, and he gets the most out of his guys. Some of these guys were kind of misfit toys from other programs before coming to ASU, and now they're cornerstones on this defense. So I trust Brian Ward quite a bit to be able to come up with any kind of scheme for a veteran quarterback or redshirt freshman quarterback. So we'll see. I will tell you if that's the case, RJ Harvey is going to need to put the team on his back, but I'm not going to disrespect this kid either. ASU hasn't really faced an elite dual threat quarterback this year either that I can think of off the top of my head. So that'll be another really interesting challenge for them to see how you hold up.
Well, Dylan Risk is just enough of a threat with his legs, as you mentioned, to make things interesting and give ASU something to think about on defense. Again, their problem has been that the previous quarterbacks have not been enough of a threat with their arms. So if I'm ASU, I'm loading the box and I'm putting my money on making this kid continue to make throws because the ASU secondary is significantly better than what they faced last week versus Arizona. As a matter of fact, Arizona has one of the worst. They got one of the worst defenses in the Big 12. So watching that, it was a good warm-up game for Dylan Risk. I think this presents a more substantial challenge. Now, Gus Malzahn has turned over play calling to Tim Harris Jr. So you've got it's the same call sheet, but maybe the feel and floats of the game is a little different with Tim Harris Jr. I'll be interested to see what he cooks up for this one, understanding that they're probably going to sell out to stop his star back.
And I think that's probably the way you got to approach this game if you're Brian Ward. And it's not even to disrespect the passing game or anything like that. It's not to disrespect the ability of Risk. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Dylan Risk. Yeah.
Risk, yeah. It's not to disrespect his ability as a passer or anything. It's just when you've got a young guy like that, the best thing that you can do is try and make him uncomfortable and take away his fallback option. That's not the word I want to use. It's the only one that's coming to my mind. You find a way to contain RJ Harvey and you put the game on Risk's shoulders. You're really interested to see how a young guy is able to respond to that. It's similar to like Sam Leavitt. You take away Cam Skattebo. Let's see how Leavitt responds to having to be the entire face of the offense. It'll be a really interesting situation if that's what these teams are faced with. If there's no Cam Skattebo, and if ASU does sell out on RJ Harvey, if you have to have these young quarterbacks have a duel with each other, who ends up winning?
So many potential storylines in this one. ASU's having a great season at 6-2. You got a UCF team that's teetering on the brink. They're trying to make a bowl game. And through all that mess, we're going to try to make a prediction about how this one's going to play out right after a quick word from our sponsors. Richard, Cameron Skattebo is him. I would say that he is him. That's what the kids say when you're the man. And you know what? If you want to be him, visit our friend at Hims. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready to be him in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have time to go to the doctor's office and get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked on. That's hims.com/locked on for your personalized ED treatment. That's hims.com/locked on. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Look, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that Richard is very familiar with that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So here's how it works. You've got all-in pricing, and toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I think that's probably my biggest bugaboo, is getting there and it's like, hey, here's an extra $50. Game Time doesn't do that. You also get panoramic seat view, so you know exactly what it's going to look like where you're sitting, and they have a low price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. It's prediction time. No Skattebo really, I think, changes this thing. I don't think this line is sitting at ASU -3 if he's playing, especially with UCF having to travel all the way out to Tempe for this one. But what do you think, man? I know you mentioned that you might take UCF in the points in this one, but give me a score prediction here. How do you see this one playing out, and what's the final score?
So here's the funny thing is, so many times when you see people do score predictions, you'll typically see like 3 touchdowns, a field goal, stuff like that. A lot of guys will do like between 24 to 30 points. Well, here's the thing. ASU can't kick field goals. They're 50% on the year. They've had 3 different kickers. No one can do it. They had open tryouts
on campus. Oh, I saw this. He called for it. He called for it in a press conference.
He sure did. Yeah, he called him atrocious. And he walked that back, but it's like, Kenny, you shouldn't have to, man. Like, sometimes you're just going to call it what it is. So I just cannot predict ASU having field goals in this game, which means you got to have more touchdowns than the opponent. I think right now, if I had to pick, I'll take ASU. Probably a low-scoring game. I just don't know if the offense will be able to explode like they have previously, and you're going to need the defense to be able to win a slugfest. I will take ASU, let's go 21-17, so they cover by that half point. Just get by on a good beat if you're betting on ASU, and a bad beat if you are betting on UCF.
Great minds think alike. Because I was going to say 21-17, but I'm going to go 24-17. I agree with you. I think that this is low scoring. Maybe both offenses look like a mess in this one. I'm looking for ASU to limit what Tim Harris is going to try to do offensively. And to me, this one comes down to the big plays in the fourth quarter. Which teams can find the big plays? Now, Dylan Risk has proven that he's not risk averse. He'll throw that dangerous pass and try to figure out, how to make something happen for his team. But, is he? I think this is the week that we find out whether he is a big-time college quarterback. So many kids, Richard, never get this shot. You're buried on the depth chart, and timing, like it feels like in college, timing is everything. They brought in the big SEC transfer in KJ Jefferson. He didn't work out. And then they went to, the other transfer in Ja'Cory Brown that came from Miami. And then the true freshman, EJ Colson, got his shot. And then finally they get to Risk. And, talent evaluation, we say this all the time on Locked On UCF, is not an exact science. Sometimes the best guy is on the bench. And so you've got a kid now who he made the most out of the small opportunity he got at the end of the BYU game while the other quarterbacks were floundering, and he's found himself in this position. And I think it's going to come down to what he can or can't do. I think they limit him some, but can he make the big play? I'm going to go with yes in this one. I like his moxie. I think that he is a great story, and I think he might be one of the better stories in college football. I'm going UCF 24. ASU 17, no disrespect, but because Skattebo, especially if he doesn't play. Now, if he does play for some reason, I throw everything I said out the window and just get ready for a wild ride. Rich, I want to thank you for joining me on this crossover episode. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter /X, whatever the cool kids are calling it these days, at Richie Brads. That's with a Z36. You can always check out the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. I will have this episode up. From my perspective, I'll give my little intro, and then me and Mike will be jabbing back and forth. So if you want to give that some love, you can check out the Locked On Sun Devils podcast on YouTube, wherever you're getting your podcasts. We also have the Twitter at LO_Sun Devils.
Guys, thank you for making Locked On UCF and Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of every day. For your second listen, go check out our friends over at the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Drake Toll, who is an absolute riot, leads the conversation in conference realignment news and holds no punches when it comes to covering every team in the Big 12. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF and Locked On Sun Devils.